John Armstrong, a painter, theatre and film costume designer who also took on commercial work.
But I think he had a unique gift. It's this wonderful sense of relevance and humour and balance that he had, and wicked sense of parody, which is a good combination.
Here was a man who was a multi-talented multitasker who worked tirelessly throughout his life, forging a very personal style.
I got him my drawing, which I took from a statue in Naples.
John Armstrong was born in 1893, the third son of a clergyman. His stern background in Sussex was rooted in religion. The countryside, nature and drawing were an important escape then and later. Tellingly, John wrote, "I loved everything painted because it was painted and not real."
I think, like all children, I was very conventional. I wished I had a father who built tree houses as opposed to a father who painted. And I think it was only as I grew more to love his work. But he was always lovely to me. But I do remember him as predominantly as working all the time.
In a way, he was quite an intellectual painter, and he wasn't necessarily swayed by a beautiful landscape or anything like this. In fact, to disassociate yourself from these natural affections, I think he found was his way of expressing himself.
John opted for art school in London after studying law at Oxford. He drew inspiration from his surroundings, including collections of ancient Greek culture in the British Museum. The First World War intervened, and with it Armstrong's initial confrontation with human self-destruction, which remained a painterly theme throughout his life. This ran alongside his fascination with classicism, reinforced by his war service in Greece with the Royal Artillery. He was mentioned in dispatches, his dress immaculate.
Always the same clothes. He wore brown suits, blue shirts. He bought grey shirts which had to be dyed a particular shade of blue because you couldn't buy blue shirts in those days, and a brown tie and brown shoes. He was terribly unfashionable, but at least it was distinctive.
Murals were a theme throughout his life. Here, panels for a staff dining room commissioned by Chalmex showing transport through the ages, before and after petrol. There are also posters for Shell, including theatre goers use Shell and farmers too. Likewise, beautifully designed commissions from the GPO showed the history of transport and how the mail was delivered. Wealthy clients commissioned work on their houses and hotels. Armstrong was also a ceramic artist for Clarice Cliff and Wedgwood and Foley, all of which helped pay the bills.
He had to work hard as a commercial artist as well as a painter to keep himself alive, and finance was always problematical, but he was very abstemious himself. He didn't travel, he didn't have extravagant habits, and so in a way he needed very little to live on.
John's first one-man show in London in 1928 sold well and received critical acclaim. Acrobats and jugglers featured. Dorothy, his eldest illustrator sister, said he loved doing nudes with brightly coloured tights. He painted in oils, but also used a Renaissance technique, egg tempera.
Became a master of it, and there are very few British artists that achieve the results he did in this medium. It has a lovely quality to it, a lovely translucent quality to the colour and the paint, and he created a technique using a square brush that almost results in the works looking as though they are mosaics.
John's life was multifarious. He designed costumes and sets for ballets and plays in between painting. He joined and exhibited with Unit 1, a group of notable artists including Nash, Hepworth, Nicholson and Henry Moore. Tate Modern devoted a room to Unit 1 as part of their major Nash show.
They wanted to try to assess the importance of figurative art as opposed to abstract art, and they took forward British art in an era that artists were investigating new ways of painting following the 20s.
Throw a purple garment lightly over her shoulders, and she becomes a Queen of Sheba. Lay your tousled head blindly upon her breast.
Film work intervened for John, and the group Unit 1 was short-lived. Meeting actress Elsa Lanchester was pivotal. She was married to actor Charles Laughton, and they introduced John to director Alexander Korda and the world of designing costumes for film.
Come.
Well, he particularly loved Rembrandt because he and Charles Laughton were able to think about it and talk about it together, and Elsa was in it also as Hedwig Stoffels. He had time to think about the costumes cinematically and really be careful, and it had such a variety in Rembrandt's own life between extreme poverty, wealth and then poverty again, and so it had everything for him, this full life and this great artist.
Royal Highness.
John's film credits include Henry VIII, Catherine the Great, the Scarlet Pimpernel and the futuristic Things to Come. In a rare interview, Armstrong spoke about the challenges of designing costumes for another film, I, Claudius, in which Charles Laughton again played the central character, with Josef von Sternberg directing.
Like John Armstrong, Korda's costume designer.
One morning he asked me, "Have we any Vestal Virgins?" I said yes. He said, "How many?" I said 6, which was the authentic number. He said, "How were they dressed?" "This won't do for me. I want 60, and I want them naked." He defined naked, bra and pants under a veil. And he said, "I want them on the set tomorrow morning."
By this time, his marriage to his first wife, Benita, had collapsed, although she remained a warm and lifelong friend. He moved to Essex with Veronica Sibthorpe, who became his second wife. His work as a war artist on the home front was seen by some to be too literal. Armstrong's eclecticism again shows up with post-war work painted in Cornwall.
The environment at Lamorna, I think, catalysed a terrific development in the anthropomorphic symbolism of John's art, and some of his most imaginative paintings. Indeed, if any of his paintings are to be called surreal, I suppose these would be amongst them, were the wind-blown flower or leaf and feather images from around 1947, which he produced in that unique environment of Lamorna.
John had a studio at Oriental Cottage where he lived with Veronica. Each day for 10 months he would travel to work in Newlyn in the bowels of the art gallery to complete a big mural commission for the ceiling of Bristol Council Chamber with Mary Collett, who was straight out of art school. Mary Collett is one of the few artists to have worked alongside John. She helped him paint his design for the Bristol ceiling. He kept to a way of working throughout his career.
he conceived a painting in its entirety and never changed it. So he had the picture of this in his head, presumably, before he actually set work on it. I mean, obviously there was a lot of details in the buildings, but he didn't like to work, change things on site, so to speak. So everything that we looked at on the design was replicated exactly on the ceiling. We had machinery for 3 sets of canvas at one time, and each one was approximately 6 foot wide by 30 foot long, and the rollers were set up so that we had these 3 visible pieces to work on at one time.
The design was mainly of buildings in Bristol, with 4 symbolic figures in the corners with a central crest.
Supposedly there are quite a number of different sorts of ship going back in history. Most of the white sails were my department. Obviously some of the buildings around as well, and the sky. John did all the fiddly bits.
He wore a big brown felt hat, pulled down over his head. You could hardly see him. He was a gaunt type, a gaunt figure, shy. He didn't talk very much. I mean, if you met him, you would say good morning. He might say good morning, or he might just grunt.
Estelle Fox, then a daffodil grower, has seen many of the artistic community come and go over the years into and out of the Lamorna Valley.
John was lodging in a caravan up in our drive up the flower loft. He was living in that for a little while, and eventually went away.
Armstrong returned to London and later met and married Annette Heaton, his 3rd wife, after a friend asked him to paint her. They had a daughter, Catherine. Still lives were a convenient way of making money as they sold. He worked through ideas in a number of paintings sequentially over a prolonged period.
One of the things I've grown to love about his work is the theme of the fragility of humans, and that comes out very much in his series on Icarus and the story of the boy who wanted to create wings and flew too near the sun and then crashed down. And in his work it's a very abstract representation, but it also comes across in his skeleton leaf paintings, and this whole idea of life disintegrating, of vanity disintegrating. For me, that sort of evokes a despair, triumphalism, and yes, reminding people of our fragility.
The theme of mankind's fragility followed in a series called The Battle Paintings. The umbrellas he wrote symbolising the inadequate beliefs under which men attempt to shelter from the growing storm of despair. He was left-leaning and vehemently against nuclear warfare. This painting, ironically titled Victory, was shown at the Royal Academy in 1958. Further bells of warning were sounded in the Toxin series, a Provençal meaning of a bell sounding an alarm. Armstrong was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease in 1962. In the same year he painted this work, Resurrection. 4 years later he was made an Associate of the Royal Academy.
And he went on painting until 6 months before he died, and after 2 strokes. And in the middle of painting he said, "I can't do any more." That was it.
He died in 1973.